This is a special video because we're going to learn how to color grade Canon Log 3 footage that was shot using an external monitor. So it's HQ uncompressed. The beautiful part about this footage is that it's perfectly exposed. Now, this footage was donated to me by Evast Productions. He's a subscriber of this channel. Now, I won't be using this footage outside of this tutorial, and it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Evast Productions. But because this clip is perfectly exposed, we'll be able to demonstrate a lot of the techniques that can apply to Canon Log 3 footage, as well as many other cameras in the market. Now, before we jump into the tutorial, just be aware that there are multiple ways to get the same result in DaVinci Resolve. I'm going to show you basically 7 different looks that I've created in DaVinci Resolve, multiple ways on achieving different looks and the same look. You can use a DaVinci YRGB color managed workflow, you can use a color space transform method, or you can just do everything from scratch by hand. Now, there are also a few other ways you can do it using LUTs and power grades, and each method works well. The method you should choose is the one that works best for you. So let's get into it. Our project settings are DaVinci YRGB, so this is standard, and then I changed my timeline color space to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 because that's what is being used now quite often. So those are our settings. And I went ahead and created 7 different looks. So you can see the difference between the looks, but you can also see that you can go about this many different ways. So I'm just going to apply all of them so you guys can see them first. And let's just go ahead and stretch this out. Now, the reason for doing all this, to create all these looks, is to show you that you can take it any direction. And the direction you should take it is the direction that your client is asking you to take it. So because it's a tutorial, I've had to create different looks because I know you guys have different tastes. This one's a little bit more cleaner and monochrome. We have a more earthy tone, right? And these first 4 that you're looking at come from me color correcting and then applying some of my Cinema Pro LUTs. This is a nice looking one, and this is also another clean monochrome one. Now, these last 3 that you're going to see, so we went through Statera, Petra, Terra, and Valkyrie. My favorite out of these is Petra. It's just a little bit cleaner. But essentially, the next 3 you're going to see are very different in the way I color graded them. Commercial is how I color grade all of my commercial work. So you can see that there's a pretty big difference with this clip, this entire grade, compared to the other ones. The other grades had about 4 different nodes. This one is right around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nodes, and they all do something different. And if I was doing a commercial for a client, this is how I would deliver it, because more than likely that's the look they're going for. It's called the clean white look, but it's a safe, standard neutral kind of look with some pop to it. These next ones you're going to look at are a Cineon film LUT. So we were able to transform the color space output gamma to a Cineon film log, because that's how these Kodak LUTs are meant to receive it, because they're based upon film emulation. So this is a Kodak emulation, and you can tell by the split toning that happens between all of these with regular film, and that Kodak look is nice. And then this is a Kodak that basically that same look with a grade on the end of it. So I call it the dusty look. It's what I'm shifting my wedding works to. And it's basically right here. So it's that Kodak look you saw with like this whole luxury dusty looking look. Now I'm going to go through and build one from scratch. And I'm going to leave all these power grades available for download in case you guys want to pick them up, apply them, and just start out of the gate. Now, if you haven't purchased my Cinema Pro LUTs, these first 4 will not work because it's going to have a missing LUT. So if you want to use them, you're going to have to pick up the LUT. The rest are free game though. And you can easily swap out those LUTs too if you just want those power grades. So leave a comment down below so I can see which one of these looks you guys would be interested in the most. That way I know if I was able to just go through one of these all the way from start to finish, I'd be going through the one that you guys would want the most. But I'm going to go through the commercial one because it's the most complex, and for the time that you're investing into watching this video, it's going to teach you the most. Now, again, there are multiple ways to go about color grading an image. You can shift anything you want to. This is just how I would do it for a commercial one. So my first step was the color space transform. This is where I went to effects. I changed my input color space that started from use timeline to Canon Cinema Gamut because it was shot with the Canon R6, and the input gamma was Canon Log 3. Now I know this because I asked them, and if you don't know that, ask your client. So we kept use timeline for both the output gamma and output color space, so that's fine. And now once you have that, you want to do all of your corrections underneath the color space transform, not after. And if you don't know why, it's because you have more flexibility to adjust the information before it's corrected than after it's corrected. All right, the next thing I did was primaries. So I've been really liking the look when I do a color space transform. I've been bringing down my highlights to about 80% almost all of the time, and I just bump up the contrast from 1, which starts here, to 1.1 just to bring some blacks back into the details after I shift this gamma from 0 to 3, and that's basically where I leave it, just to bring back some of the skin before and after. Now that's just bringing the highlights down, keeping that contrast in the image, and bringing up that gamma just enough to make it pop. Now I did add the HDR palette in here. I brought the highlights down, I brought the light down, and I boosted the shadows. So you guys know, if you've watched a few of my videos, I do the same thing with my highlights. I bring them down to 10. I bring my light down to 10, and then I bring up my shadows to 15. Now, this is one of the things, the tools in DaVinci Resolve that are pretty strong if you ever do it. That's why I only go micro adjustments with these. And you see how that just cleans it up. You can get away with this and you can be fine, but I keep going because I want to clean some more up. So color is where you would adjust white balance and clean up your image and all that stuff. I kind of just do all my color stuff in one. Now, if I turn it on, you can see that we desaturated the greens, and we basically desaturated all of the tones but the blues and the skin. Let's go back and show you what I'm talking about. So the first thing I did was I brought my highlights down to where the Luma says 0.97, and then I brought just the Luma channel back up. What that does is brings the light, the Luma channel up, and keeps the colors down. So essentially it's cleaning up your white channels, which is really, really nice to get a cool, clean commercial look. Now, I also went into my hue versus saturation. I clicked on the red dot, the yellow dot, the green dot, the blue dot, and the teal dot and the blue dot. And essentially I brought my greens all the way down. You can see before and after what it looks like, but essentially I'm trying to get the green out of these curtains right here. And I did that by just bringing that green down. Now I took my teal and my blue and I brought it up so I can have some color in my sky in the background. You can see before and after. It's a subtle adjustment, but it looks pretty good. So I can maintain those nice clean looking blues. Now, once I had my colors looking right here, I brought her skin tone up just a tiny bit. You can see 0.05, like it was the smallest adjustment, but I did add some color back into her skin. That's because I knew I was going to come into my hue versus Luma channel, where I'll reset it. Essentially, I clicked on the red dot right here and I just brought it up. You can see if I overdo it, what it does. But essentially, it's just adding some light to her skin, just like that. And when you add light to the subject, you desaturate an image. When you remove light from a subject, bring the darkness in or bring the light down, you saturate an image. So that's why I added some red to her skin, because I knew I was going to bump up the light on her skin, the exposure. And that's just my color. Now, once I made those adjustments, for me, it works better when I white balance because I get things a little bit more accurate. So I grab my white balance tool. I find a point in the video that's white. I look at my RGB colors and then I click. And now I can see when I bring the eyedropper tool back over that spot, the values read 199, 196, 197. So I know that things are looking just a little bit cleaner. And we got our exposure, we got our white balance. Once you do that, you can grade. So this focus node is simply a power window, right? I just took a power window. I then tracked it by clicking here and tracking it. And what DaVinci does is track your power window, your mask, so it stays over your subject. And DaVinci does a great job at doing pretty quick. When I did that, I added a little bit of blue into the background. I removed some of the color boost just a tiny bit, and I brought the mid-tone detail down. This is kind of like adding bokeh artificially. When I did that and I got my focus set on her, I went into my curves over here and I clicked in the middle because it gives you a really natural, you can see over here in your scopes that it's really natural, the way that it brings down the exposure. So essentially I just brought the exposure around her down just a little bit so we can relight. This is what the technique is called, is relighting. And then I just added some blur. So if I overdo it, you can see what happens. If I crank it the other direction, it's kind of like the clarity feature in Lightroom, if you're familiar with Lightroom. So now that we got our color, our contrast, and our focus, I did add pop. Now, when I added pop to this, essentially I made sure editable splines was turned on, and I'll undo it. When you have it turned on, you can click the top dot, another one will appear. And essentially I just drag up until I get the levels I'm looking for. And when I'm bringing them up, I'm looking at her skin because that's what matters. So right around here with the Luma channel, that's her skin. And you could see that if I took a power window, put it over her and just brought it down, and then turn the magic tool on, you can see the information right here. That is kind of where I'm looking. Now, if you're not trained and you don't do this often, then you might not be able to pick it out, but I can. So essentially, I'm just looking at that information, making sure that her skin stays between 4 to 7 or 40 to 70 IRE. And that gives it a high key look. And I'm super stoked with the way that looks. And now that I got my image looking really, really nice and cool, I added a LUT. And this is from my Cinema Pro series, Petra. Now it is a little too strong and a little like too much monochrome happening. I do want some color, so I'm gonna bring it down to like 0.5 before and after. It's super subtle. And then once all that was done, I added some noise reduction. Now you can, sharpen this up. With the girl in the shot, you don't want to. So instead of sharpening, I did add mid-tone detail right here in my primaries. This originally starts at 0. I brought it up to 15. And if you do want to sharpen it, I'll just show you really quick how to do it. Let's just add it to this pop right here. You go into your little eyedropper triangle thing here, and then any of these work, right? Any of them work, but you can already see where I'm getting at. I only bring it to 0.47 because I find that's strong enough. So if we're looking at our eyeball before and after, of course, you get that pop in there. So that's all it would do to this image. Again, there are multiple ways you can color grade this, and there are different opinions on how you could color grade, but this is essentially how I would do it. And that would be done when I'm ready to render. I'm exporting these videos to be formatted for modern Apple devices and Android devices and TVs and mobile phones. So that's why I've created a Cinema Pro preset where I change the color space tag and the gamma tag, P3 DCI, which is a phone screen, and then Rec 709. And I know you get into like sRGB and then Rec 709. And now I haven't seen anybody using the P3 DCI or the Rec 709 gamma tag combined together to export the footage. The reason I do it is because it works really well for me. And you'll run into this issue in DaVinci Resolve when you export your footage, and you'll probably call it a gamma shift. There's more going on, another video, but essentially what I've found when I export this footage using P3 DCI and a Rec 709 color space and gamma tag, then when I bring it into Final Cut Pro to edit, the footage looks identical as I exported it from DaVinci Resolve. Now I'm bringing this up because I do get a lot of questions about why I use those, and some people may even say that it's not a good option. Well, your iPhone are using P3 DCI, and common color spaces like Rec 709 and sRGB fit perfect with these settings. So when I export the videos and I look at them on my phone, they look the same as if they did in DaVinci Resolve. So that is why I'm using these export settings versus other settings that people that may be more qualified than me would recommend. It works well for me. I get paid by clients. They still love my work. I haven't had anybody complain professionally. And as long as no one's complaining, I'm going to keep on doing it because it's working for me. It's working for my clients. So just be aware that there is multiple versions like we talked about on how to export your video. This just works well for me, and it's what I would recommend that you use. So that is all for me. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you want to learn more, please like, comment, and subscribe, because it will let me know that I can keep on making videos like this that you guys enjoy. It will also tell YouTube to put this video in front of more people so that more people can get the solution that you just received. Anyway, that's all for me, so I'll see you guys in the next one.